This episode sponsored by Lake Monster Details, producing the Don's Light and Magic Legacy line of parts, offering upgrade parts and decals for accuracy, special effects, and lighting. Visit www.lakemonsterdetails.com and make it glow. Also sponsored by GCals, producing aftermarket replacement decals and custom quality graphics for your favorite spaceships. Visit www.gcals.company.site and add some personalization to your sci-fi models today. Also sponsored by Mask Design, boldly going where no masking kit has gone before. Take your model to the next level of detail and accuracy with a masking kit from Mask Design. Visit Mask Design on Facebook or click the ordering link in the notes below the video. Also sponsored by Paragrafix. Add superior detail and accuracy to your models with photo etch, resin, and multimedia accessories from your first source for photo etch parts and more. Paragrafix. They count rivets so you don't have to. Visit Paragrafix at www.paragrafix.biz or click the link in the notes below this video. Hey, what's up, fellow modelers? Will here. Welcome to the Ensign's Chair and yet another exciting build episode on our ongoing Reliant build. But we're close to the finish line. I figure after this, probably got 2 more episodes. We're going to pretty much finish up the painting on this episode. And there's a couple little details I got to finish up, but it's pretty much done at the end of this episode. And then next episode will be pretty much wiring everything together, getting the roll bar and nacelles attached to the main hull. And then that'll pretty much be it. The build will be done for the most part, except I'm going to do a totally separate episode, its own episode on doing the display base for it. And that might take me a little bit to do, so I might have to work on that a little bit here and there. But we'll get the build done for the most part, and then the base I'm going to have to work on, because it's going to take me a little bit longer to get the base done. It's like its own little build in a way, because there's some features I want to add to this, and we'll see how it goes. But anyway, this build here, we're going to dive into a couple little details that you may not have seen or noticed on the Reliant Studio model, and we're going to try to add those details to this model. So, without further ado, give me a minute. I'll put you on the bench. We'll get to work. All right, so I've gotten a bit of progress done on this, and you can see I've got all the Aztecs are done. My sensor bands are done on the sides. They actually lined up pretty well with the windows, as long as you line up the bottom edge of that mask with the bottom edge of the saucer. They line up pretty well. I did have to make some adjustments on this side a little bit. They might widen out just a little bit more here than the rest of it, but you can't really tell unless you know to look for it. So, but they actually match up pretty well with this back end, so I don't know, maybe they're fine. But so I got those all done, and I'm really happy with how well they turned out. I do have to do a little bit of a touch up right here. I know it's kind of washing out a little. Let me see if I focus this, if you can tell. So I got a little bit of a mess up here, a little bit of a rub here, I think, where I touched it too soon after it was painted. But just a little bit right here you can see too, and a spot right there. So I got a couple little spots I got to touch up on it, but that'll be easy to do. but it turned out real well. I like how it lined up with the windows for the most part. Like I said, just the one side over there is where I had to do some adjustments with the masking because it didn't quite, the paint line would have been touching or almost halfway over the windows on that side. But so I started working on the paint details here, and I painted this the same gray that I used on the roll bar, but I'm thinking I might remask this and the roll bar lightning bolts and paint this with a darker gray. I think I'm going to use my neutral gray that I've made up here. Excuse me. It's just a little bit darker, and it's got just a slight tint of blue, which I think when you look at the studio model photos, I think that's would be the correct color to go with. I think this is just a little bit too light. I didn't want to go too dark because you typically don't want to go real dark the smaller the scale of the model you're building. So I tried this, and I think it's just a little too light. So I'm going to go in with this neutral gray and repaint. It's not that big of a deal. This is pretty easy to mask off. The hardest part is masking off around the BCD deck here, or BCD deck. The BC deck here, you can see where I got that done. And paint it up. Let me focus here a little bit if I can get this to change. There we go. So you can see that, but I'm gonna have to remask all that off. And the top here, the bridge, when you look at the studio models, this is either a bluish gray or it's the same gray as what you typically would paint this with. I went with a kind of a bluish gray mix for that because that's pretty much what the way I can't talk today. The way the refit is. So I did that, and then I came over again with the same mixture I used on the lower sensor dome, which was a bit of that, where'd I put it at? A bit of my pearl. It was about 2 drops of my pearl, and then I did 2 drops of my silver and mixed those together, and that gives it a nice look. So that's what I used on the dome itself. And then a lot of people miss this. But and it's because it's not an easy detail to see. You've got to look at just the right picture of the studio model. And this is a little darker than it is on the studio model, but I'm not too worried about that. But this does, now on the refit, this is like everybody refers to it as the clamshell because it comes out a little bit and then it has those little tick marks around it. This on the Reliant does not have like the clamshell shape. It basically comes out and it touches these dots on the around the bridge here, which will get painted as soon as I'm ready to get this all done. I'm going to paint these like probably a darker gray. I'll probably use my deep gray for that because I don't want to do them quite in a black, but I'll probably paint these raised marks around here. You've got these little raised marks around here that a nice detail cast is added to this. But those are like a darker color. They could be black, but I'm going to paint them a gray. And then this depression back here gets painted a darker color, like a black or gray as well. So I'm going to paint those. But this blue, if you look at the studio model, I'll show the picture that I'm referring to real quick. Let me pull this up. So if you look at that picture, you can see just very faintly, and it could be the lighting, so it might be why that looks so light. But there is a blue outline around the base of the bridge there. So, and it just comes up and just about touches those black raised areas around the front there. So I'm going to duplicate that here. Well, I've already duplicated that, but you can see that there. So a lot of people miss that. They don't add that detail to the Reliant because, for one, it's hard to see. One more interesting thing I want to point out while I'm showing this, I'll show this picture again. But if you'll notice, there's paneling on top of the BC deck. Now, I'm pretty sure that's not etched in. It's probably done by pencil line, if you look at that. And I'm thinking this because I know that on the Katinga, and there's some other instances of this too. I think on maybe the Enterprise C model, they did a lot of panel lining with pencil, or some pencil like instrument. But so you can see I might try to recreate that. What I'm thinking is taking some tape and just laying it down and then tracing along the edge of the tape with a pencil to recreate those panel lines, but you can see that in that image. And also, if you look at below the gray on the BC deck, that continues down into the base of the BC deck. So I think I'm gonna try I might try to recreate that using like I said, using a pencil and some tape. Just tape it off, trace along the edge of one edge of the tape, and then I'll get that panel line on there. So I'll test it out, see what it looks like. The good thing about pencil is if I don't like it, I can just come back over and erase it. So I might wait till I get the clear coat on to try that. I don't know. It's gonna have to have a clear coat on it after. So, and I'm not sure that the pencil will work very well on the clear coat. So I may go ahead and try that now before I clear coat it. But it'll be the last thing I try to do on here, and I'll try it in as inconspicuous of a spot as I can before that. And I'm also looking at this too, and I notice it looks like there's even pencil line along the bottom, like midway up the dome and down. It looks like they did the same thing there with pencil. So that's interesting. On the side of the bridge, because you don't have that detail on the kit part either, it looks like they penciled that as well. That all looks like pencil work. So I think I'm gonna try to recreate some of that and see how it looks. But and if I don't like it, if you don't like it, then you'll know when you do your build, and I'll know when I do my next build not to do that. So anyway, so that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm working on right now. I'm going to redo these grays. I got to do the blue now in these mechanical pits over top of these sensors. I believe this blue is the same as the weapons pod, so I need to paint that. So doing that, the darker gray on this spot, these raised areas here, and then repainting the lighter gray to a more of a medium gray. That's what I'm gonna work on now, and then we'll come back and we'll see where we're at. All right, so I've got pretty much all the details finally painted on. The only thing I got left to do is the phaser banks, but I've got something to work out because I'm not really happy with the way the thrusters turned out. They're gonna need to be cleaned up a bit, and I really don't want to do that on the underside and have the underside or the top side like the underside. I've got to do quite a bit of cleanup on this still, and the thruster ports again I'm not too happy with. I need to do some cleanup on those. But that being said, everything else is painted. I did paint the details in the mechanical pit, and I also painted the shuttle bay doors on the back. Those are painted, and I did do the gray around the bridge here as far as those raised details that you've got. Let's see if I can bring this up a little bit. And if you'll notice, I also went ahead and put some very light panel lines, just like I was talking about on the studio model, around the bridge. Just very lightly scribed with a pencil. And the way I did that was I just took a piece of tape, put it on there where I thought the line needed to go. Took my pencil and very lightly just did one stroke on it, just one down line on it, and that was it. Stop with that, pull it off, and for the most part it turns up pretty light. If it still ends up, if you bear a little bit hard, or if it ends up darker than you like, you just take your eraser and you just draw it across it in one direction. Don't go back and forth on it, because you want to take off a little bit at a time just to lighten it up just the slightest amount as you go over these. And I'm still working on a couple little spots on here where I want to lighten it up just a little bit more. I don't want those panel lines to be very pronounced. I just want them to be noticeable. And when I put the clear coat on here, that'll protect these. This would work better if I had a separate like eraser on it and get in here. But that's pretty much how I did it. I just, like I said, put a piece of tape on there, very lightly draw a line, and if it comes out too dark, you just draw your eraser over it, and you can see where those panel lines are at. So it's really optional as to whether or not you do that. It's kind of like on the TOS. A lot of people say that penciling in the panel lines on the saucer isn't really necessary, because at that scale it shouldn't be really noticeable. So same thing here. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. I just figured I'd try it out and see if I like it. I think it turned out all right. I I actually don't mind that it's got the pencil line. The only issue is that people that don't realize that these lines are supposed to be on here per the studio model might look at it and think that was a mistake. So it's really up to you whether you want to include it or not. Not a big deal with it. So if you decide not to, I wouldn't say there's any issues with that. I'm kind of on the fence about it, but I'm not worried enough about it to go around. If you don't like it, you just go take your pencil and you erase it off. I mean, this Rust-Oleum paint isn't going to come off. So you just take your pencil, you remove the line completely. But I just want to leave a faint line, set of panel lines on there for it. So a couple little touch-ups I got to do. Like I said, I got to work out these because I'm not happy with the way my yellow and reds are turning out on the phasers or on the thrusters. So I've got to kind of brainstorm and figure something out with that. But other than that, I did go back and paint my my darker gray. I used that neutral gray that I had, and just I think that's a good tone to go with. It's dark enough. I don't know if a medium gray would be darker. I think a medium gray is a little bit darker than the neutral gray, and I wouldn't go any darker than this. So that's just my personal preference. But other than fixing those couple issues and those other, the phaser banks I got to address, that's pretty much it. This is pretty much done painting. It's got to be decaled and all that, but I won't decal it till I get the whole thing put together, and then I'll do decals. Actually, I'll get it assembled. I'll do a clear coat over everything first, because you don't want to put water slide decals on craft paint, because there's a good chance you'll have that craft paint either come up or it'll start mixing in with stuff, and it can just make a mess. So you want to, before you do anything else, I should have done that before I even did anything with these thrusters, because it would be a lot easier to fix these if I didn't have to worry about taking off any of the Aztec. I actually got a little bit of yellow paint overspray somehow. It got under the tape, and I wiped it off, and fortunately I was able to get pretty much the yellow off, except it did lighten up the Aztec I painted on right here a little bit, because the Aztec I'd done a week ago now, and it had cured a bit more and dried a bit more. So if I was able to come over this with just a very lightly damp cloth and take that yellow off real quick before that dried too much. So not a big deal. It was a kind of a hold my breath moment when I did that, but it turned out fine. But honestly, I should have clear coated these Aztecs once the Aztecs are done before I did anything else. Because if you do have anything like that happen and you get a thick coat of it on here, you're never going to get that thick coat of paint off. Fortunately, it was just a light little bit of yellow that got under the tape. But if you get anything thick on there, you're not going to get that off without removing the rest of this too. So word to the wise, some advice for just future builds. When you do your Aztecs and if you're using the craft paints, clear coat it before you do any of the detail painting. That way you don't have to worry about messing anything up. But I was lucky I was able to fix that without destroying anything. So the saucer, the main hull is pretty much painted up and ready to go and ready for final assembly. I'm going to get this attached to the weapons pod, roll bar, nacelles. I'm going to get all that attached and wired up. And we're going to do that in the next video. I'm going to end this video here and wrap it up. I think it's a good amount on this one. Just doing the painting. We'll do the final assembly and testing out the wiring and the lights and everything on the next video. And then we should be able to wrap it up for the build itself, and then I'll do another video just on the base. So we should have like 2 more videos left after this. But so anyway, that's pretty much it. I'm happy with the way this is turning out. Like I said, with the exception of a couple of things I've got to go back and fix now. But anyway, so again, as always, thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate you for joining me and taking your time out to watch this video. I appreciate the feedback. I just earlier today, to give you a little bit of a timeline as to when this is, I did my first live YouTube broadcast, and I really enjoyed doing it. Had some people there, we got some feedback, got some questions, and it was a pleasure talking to Cass. And I hope to do more of those in the future. I really had fun doing that earlier today. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, please click over and watch that video and check out some of the conversation that I had with Cass over at Lake Monster Details. But again, thank you everybody for watching this. As always, a shout out to my sponsors, Cass over at Lake Monster Details, excuse me, Gus over at GCals, Paul over at Paragrafix, and Gary over at Mass Design. I appreciate all their support, and I'm glad that this build is kind of coming to an end so I can move on to the next one. Not sure what that is yet. Like I said, I want to finish up the one. I want to get the 1350 refit. Some major progress still on that. Try to get that wrapped up and see where we go from there. So anyway, till next time, keep modeling.